At our anniversary dinner, my husband laughed and said, "Imagine thinking you were ever my first choice." But he wasn't laughing when an older woman approached our table and said something that turned his face completely pale. "My name is Emily Parker. I was 29 when I married David. We met in college, laughed too much, and promised each other forever. We live in a small town near the river. We have a cozy house, a little white cat named Miso, and we like to walk to the park on Sundays. I thought our life was simple and good. On our 5th wedding anniversary, David took me to a fancy restaurant downtown. The place had soft lights and fresh flowers on every table. I wore the blue dress he loved. He wore his gray suit and smelled like the cologne he always used. I wanted the night to be perfect. I wanted to feel the promise again. We sat at a table by the window. People around us laughed and clinked glasses. I felt warm and safe. David held my hand under the table and smiled. He told jokes and made me laugh like he used to. For a moment, I believed everything was right. Then he said something that hurt me like a knife. He laughed at me. Not a kind laugh, but a small, cruel laugh. "Imagine thinking you were ever my first choice," he said, like it was a joke. His voice was light, but his eyes were cold. Time stopped. My fork dropped and hit the plate with a soft clink. My heart felt heavy. For a second, I could not move. I wanted to push him, to tell him I had always tried, to tell him how much I loved him. But his face did not change. He smiled like he had planned this line. People around us kept talking and eating as if nothing strange had happened. Before I could answer, an older woman stood up from a nearby table and walked toward us. She had white hair pulled back in a neat bun. She wore a blue coat and a small gold ring on her finger. Her walk was steady, like she had been walking these restaurants for years. She stopped at our table and looked at David. Her eyes held something I did not understand. Then she leaned in and said words that made the color leave his face. "David Parker," she said softly. "You promised me you would never forget our son." His smile fell away. His face turned pale like milk. He looked at her like he had seen a ghost. The whole restaurant seemed to close in. My ears rang. I could not hear my own breath. The woman looked at me then, steady and calm. "Do you remember the house by the lake?" she asked. "The summer of 2011? I did not know what she meant. I looked at David for help, but he looked like he was losing his mind. He whispered a name I had never heard and then stood up so fast the chair scraped the floor. "Mom," he said. His voice shook. I felt my world crack. The woman's hand reached out and touched his cheek the way a mother touches a child. "I haven't come all this way for nothing," she said. "I wanted you to know the truth before you spoke in front of your wife." My head spun and the room tilted. I wanted to run out into the night and scream, but my hands were frozen on my lap. I tried to make sense of what she had said. Son? Summer of 2011? Promise to never forget? David's eyes were fixed on her. He looked older all of a sudden, like someone had taken years off him. His mouth opened and closed, like a bird trying to sing but losing the words. The woman's voice was quiet but sharp. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small photograph. The edges were bent and the colors were faded, but I could see 2 small figures on a dock. A boy with a red shirt and wet hair. A man with his arm around the boy. The man looked young in the photo, younger than David looked now, but when I looked closely I saw the same eyes. The same crooked smile. The woman placed the photograph on the table in front of David. It slid like it had been waiting for that moment. Gasps went around the room. A few heads turned. People watched quietly, like a drama on stage. David's hands trembled as he picked up the photo. He could not stop looking. His face turned whiter each second. The woman said in a quiet voice, "You said you would take care of him. You said you would write. You said you would come back. But you never did." David looked at me then, and his eyes were full of something I could not read. Shame? Fear? Guilt? I wanted him to tell the truth. I wanted him to say it was a mistake, that he had been young, that he had been scared. I wanted to hear anything that would make this not true. But he sat down slowly, and his hand covered his mouth. His face had become a mask of something broken. I felt small and cold. I tried to move, to say something, but my voice would not come. The woman continued like a slow storm. I came because our son is here now, she said. He is old enough to ask questions. He wants to see the man who left. My breath hitched. My mind moved in places I did not want it to go. If this was true, what did it mean for us? For our life? For the promises we had made? Betrayal tasted like metal in my mouth. David pushed his chair back and stood. He looked at me. His eyes were empty. Emily, please, he said very soft. The woman's face was kind and hard at the same time. I am not here to hurt your wife, she said. I am here for the truth. A waiter cleared his throat, but nobody moved. The clink of glasses had turned into a drumbeat in my head. David swallowed and said, How did you find us? She smiled like someone who had spent years planning something. Our son found you on social media, she said. He saw a photo of a woman with your face. He wanted to know if this was where his father had built a life. He came with me. My hands were cold. I could not stop shaking. A little boy stood up from a table near the window. He looked around 9 years old. He had wet hair and a red shirt. He held a small toy boat in his hand. He was smaller than the boy in the photograph, but when he looked at David there was something like recognition in his face. The boy walked slowly toward us and the room went quiet like the world was listening. As he reached our table, David's eyes widened in a way that hurt me. He whispered, No, not him. The boy stopped and looked at me. For a moment our eyes met. There was no anger. There was just a little fear and a quiet question. He did not know me. He only knew he had found something that looked like a family. Before I could speak, before I could move, the boy turned and ran out of the restaurant. His feet pounded on the floor. The door slammed behind him. David stood there, breathing hard, his face the color of paper. Sweat formed on his forehead. He looked like someone who had been found out. People around us whispered. I felt like my chest might break. I wanted to scream. I wanted to make him say everything. I wanted him to tell me this was not true. Then the boy's small voice came from outside the door, speaking like a bell through an open window. He said he was sorry, the voice called. He said sorry like he meant it. He said he would come back for me. David's face changed again. It went pale as a sheet. He turned to the older woman and said nothing. His mouth moved, but no sound came out. The woman looked at him with a patient sadness. You promised, she said again. Sometimes people do not keep their promises. But you promised, and our son waited. My heart pounded so loud I could hear it in my ears. I felt like the floor dropped out under my feet. Then David did something I did not expect. He looked at me with hard eyes and laughed, a short, cruel laugh. Imagine thinking you were ever my first choice, he said like a knife. The words landed and cut. The older woman moved closer. Her hand rested on the photograph. She looked at David and then at me. Her face was soft, but her eyes held a fire that made everyone stop breathing. She leaned forward and said one sentence that made David's face go as white as paper. But she did not say it loud. She said it so softly the room could barely hear. What you promised me, he kept. David's face lost every color. His body sagged like a puppet with its strings cut. He looked like he might faint. At that moment the restaurant lights blinked and a glass fell from a nearby table and shattered on the floor with a loud crash. I reached out without thinking and grabbed David's arm. He was shaking like a leaf. And then, I felt the glass break inside my chest. The sharp sound of the falling glass made heads turn faster than the old woman's quiet words. Everyone in the restaurant suddenly watched us. The air smelled like lemon and wine and fear. I held David's arm because my fingers wanted to move, but my voice did not come. David's face went even whiter. He looked like he had seen an old scar open again. His hands trembled. For a beat he stood there like a man caught in a net. The older woman, the boy's mother, looked at him with a strange calm. Her eyes were soft, but hard at the same time. He waited, she said again, softer than a whisper. He waited by the lake every summer. He kept the toy boat. I looked down at the photograph. The little boat in the picture was cracked and small and perfect for a child. I thought of my own life, my small comforts, the quiet dinners, the slow mornings. I had thought I knew my husband. I had thought we built everything together. The idea that his past had another story felt like someone had taken a brick from our house. David's laugh, the cruel one, died in his throat. He looked at the woman like he wanted to crawl into a hole. He sat down heavily. His hand covered his face. He breathed in as if he had been underwater and now came up for air. I wanted to ask him, why? Who? How could you keep this from me? But the words would not form. My mouth felt full of cotton. My mind beat around the edges of the truth like a bird against glass. The little boy that had run away a moment before now stood outside the restaurant by the window. He pressed his hand to the glass and looked inside. I could see his small face, the wet hair, those curious eyes that did not yet understand the hurt he had brought into our lives. He looked like a child holding a secret he did not yet know how to explain. One of the waiters came over slowly, his tray balanced in his hands. He did not say much. He just asked if we wanted to move to a quieter table. People around us murmured. Some whispered that we should leave. One woman even stood up and began to cross the room to offer help. The air felt tight like a held breath. David finally spoke. His voice was small. Mom, how did you find us? The woman shrugged, as if it were a simple thing. Our son is good with the internet. He saw a photo of you and Emily celebrating. He wanted to know if this was where you had made your family. He wanted to see if the man in that photo was the same man with the crooked smile. I felt that crooked smile inside me like a cold stone. I didn't know, David said in a broken way. Emily, I didn't tell you everything about my life before you. I thought I could protect that part. I thought it would be better to leave it behind. I wanted to believe him then. I wanted to reach for the man I married. I wanted him to pull me in and explain everything. But his hands kept trembling. His eyes kept moving away like he was reading a different life. The older woman put her hand on the boy's head gently. You should not have come alone, she said to him. Then she looked at me. I am sorry to bring this into your dinner. I am not here to ruin your night. I am here because the boy needed to know the man who said he would come back. A quiet restlessness began around the room. Plates were set aside, cutlery made soft little metal sounds. The chef leaned at the pass and watched. People did not want to be rude, but they wanted to see what would happen next. David pushed his chair back. Silver legs scraped the floor with a loud noise that made my heart jump. He stood up and walked out of the restaurant. He did not say where he was going. He did not reach for me. He just went. People watched him go, some with pity, some with anger, some with curiosity. I sat there frozen until my hands started to cramp. My chest moved too quickly and then too slowly. My mind kept returning to the photograph and the boy by the window. I thought of promises. I thought of how easy it is for a person to say one thing and do another. A waiter brought me a glass of water without asking. I took it like it was a lifeline. The older woman stayed standing where she was, the photograph still on the table between us. She had the quiet look of someone who had rehearsed this, and also the look of someone whose heart had been broken for a very long time. I went outside to the sidewalk after a few minutes. The night was cool and the city smelled like rain. The boy sat on the curb, his small legs crossed. He held the toy boat like it was a treasure. He looked up when I came close. Hi, I said, my voice small. He did not answer right away. He watched me with those clear eyes. Is he your dad? He asked. The words were direct and innocent, and they cut me more than any shout could have. I knelt down so I could be at his level. I thought he was, I whispered. I thought he loved me. The boy looked at me like he wanted to help but was not sure how. He said he would come back, the boy said. He told me he would. My mom says sometimes people promise and they forget. The boy's small, blunt honesty made my heart ache. I wrapped my arms around my knees and tried to breathe. The streetlight hummed softly above us. I thought of my wedding day, of his laugh when we danced badly in the kitchen. The memory pained and soothed me at once. Then the boy's mother called him softly, and a man in a gray coat, maybe the boy's grandfather, walked toward us. He had a tired face and asked the boy softly if he was okay. The boy stood and ran to him, clutching the boat. I stayed on the curb for a moment longer. The world felt small and huge at the same time. I wanted answers, but answers cost something. I had to decide if I wanted to pull at the loose thread and see what came undone. If the truth was a rope that could tie us together or a knife that could cut us. When I went back inside, the restaurant was quieter. A few people had left. The older woman was still standing where she had been. The photograph lay face down on the table. David was not there. The candle on the table had melted a little and the wax had dripped like time. I sat down slowly and reached for the photograph. It flipped in my hands. The boy's small smiling face looked up at me again. A waiter came with a small note. It had been slipped under our table while I was outside. The older woman watched me hold it. I opened it with fingers that trembled. The note had 3 words. "You remember him." My mouth went dry. My hand shook. Before I could look up, the restaurant doors burst open with a loud bang. People turned. A man stood in the doorway, his face red with breath and anger. He pointed a finger toward our table and shouted one word that shocked me so much I felt my bones rattle. "Liar." Then everything happened too fast. David appeared at the entrance, his suit wrinkled, his eyes wide and wild. He ran toward the man who had shouted. The man shoved him. A chair tipped. Glasses fell off a table. The restaurant turned into a storm of shouts. David shoved back. The other man shoved harder. Hands grabbed. I stood to stop them. Before I could, David stumbled backward, tripped over a chair leg, and fell hard to the floor. He hit his head on the edge of the table and lay still. People screamed. The world narrowed to the sound of my own heartbeat. I dropped to my knees beside him. His eyes were open but blank. A bright pain shot through my chest and the room swam. Someone shouted for help. A phone rang. The boy outside started crying. The older woman's face went pale and her hands flew to her mouth. And as hands reached for David, I leaned close and heard a sound that I could not understand. His breath came in short gasps like waves. Then his mouth moved, forming words that were almost lost in the noise. I didn't mean. He could not finish. The restaurant spun. My fingers dug into the tablecloth as if I could hold the world from falling apart. Then, over the noise, the older woman said something that went straight into my bones. "Call an ambulance," she said quietly. But even as someone ran for help, I knew the night had changed forever. The lie had exploded into truth, and that truth was now a broken man on the floor. The tablecloth soaked with spilled wine spread like a dark stain. The scene ended with a heavy thud. David's head had struck the floor hard. The room held its breath. And the last thing I saw before the chapter closed was David's hand twitching once, like he reached for someone who was not there. The restaurant felt like it had warped into another world, one filled with broken glass, spilled wine, and shaking breaths. People stood frozen. Some covered their mouths. Some whispered. Some backed away like the truth on the floor might burn them too. David lay still. Too still. I knelt beside him, my hands hovering near his face, afraid to touch him, afraid not to touch him. His eyes fluttered like he was drifting in and out of consciousness. His lips moved, but no sound came out. The older woman, the boy's mother, stepped closer slowly, her hands trembling. For someone who had walked in with so much strength, she suddenly looked fragile. Like she had not expected this. Like she had not wanted it to go this far. "Don't move him," someone said. Another person said, "He hit his head hard." Someone else whispered, "This is why you don't run from your past." I pressed my fingers lightly to David's shoulder. "David, look at me," I whispered. "Stay awake." He blinked slowly, like each movement took effort. A soft groan escaped him. For a moment, I felt a tiny relief. He was still alive, but the fear in his eyes made my stomach twist. He looked lost, scared, like a child who woke up in the wrong house. The man who had shoved him, tall, angry, red-faced, backed away now. His anger melted into shock. He kept rubbing his hands like he wanted to wipe the moment off him. I didn't think, he came at me," he muttered. The older woman turned toward him sharply. "You didn't need to hit him," she said, and her voice trembled as much as her hands. "You didn't need to." "He shoved me first," the man said. "I wasn't trying to." He stopped, swallowed. Nobody believed he had planned a fight, but nobody cared. The damage was already done. A waiter came running from the back. "The ambulance is on the way." They said 3 minutes. 3 minutes. 3 minutes felt like a lifetime. I held David's hand. It shook in mine. His fingers curled weakly, like he was trying to hold on to something, anything. "Emily," he whispered, his voice rough, barely a breath. I'm sorry." Tears stung my eyes. "Just breathe, okay? Just breathe. The ambulance is coming." "I didn't mean for you to find out like this," he said. His voice cracked. "Not here. Not like this." A strange mix of pain and anger hit me. I wanted to yell. I wanted to ask why he said I wasn't his first choice. Why he kept secrets for years. Why he left a child behind. But I couldn't. Not here. Not while he lay on the floor with his blood beginning to form a thin line near his temple. Instead, I whispered, "Why, David? Why didn't you tell me?" His eyes rolled a little before focusing on me. "I was scared," he murmured. "I didn't want to lose you." A bitter laugh almost escaped me. "David, you lost me the moment you hid who you were." His face twisted, hurt, guilt, regret all in one. At that moment, the little boy walked back into the restaurant. People tried to block him, but he slipped between legs like a shadow and stopped next to me. His toy boat dangled from his hand. When the boy saw David lying there, his small face crumpled. Is he hurt?" he asked, voice soft and scared. I nodded slowly, my throat tight. "Yes, but he's alive." The boy knelt on the other side of David. He placed the toy boat gently on David's chest, as if giving him something that belonged to him. David's eyes flickered open again, and when he saw the boy, his whole face changed. Not with fear. Not with shame. With pure, broken grief. "I'm so sorry," David whispered to the child. "I'm so sorry." The boy didn't move. He just looked at him with wide, sad eyes. His mother came quickly and scooped him close. Her hands were shaking so hard she dropped her purse. Lipstick and tissues rolled across the floor. But she didn't pick them up. She only held her son tighter. "Don't look, sweetheart," she whispered. "Come here. Come." But the boy didn't hide his face. He stared at David like he was trying to understand something much bigger than his 9-year-old heart could carry. Finally, the sirens grew loud outside, sharp, bright, urgent. People stepped aside as 2 paramedics rushed in with a stretcher. They knelt beside David and began checking his pulse, shining lights in his eyes, asking questions he could barely answer. "Sir, can you hear me?" "Yes, why yes." "Sir, stay with us." "Okay. Does this hurt?" "Yes." "Possible concussion," one of them said. "We need to move him." As they lifted him onto the stretcher, a small folded paper fluttered out of David's pocket and landed on the floor. The older woman noticed it first. She bent down slowly and picked it up. When she opened it, her face went pale. She looked at me, not angry, not blaming, just deeply sad. She held out the note with a gentle hand. This was for your husband," she said. I took it with shaking fingers and unfolded it. Inside was a short handwritten message. One I didn't expect. One that made my breath catch. It said, "You were supposed to meet him this summer." My head snapped up. "Meet who?" The older woman swallowed. "Our son," she said quietly. David agreed to finally meet him this summer. After 10 years. I looked at David as the paramedics wheeled him toward the door. His eyes were closed now. His face pale. So he was coming back. He was planning something. A truth. A meeting. A reckoning. But then, why did he tell me I wasn't his first choice? Why speak to me so cruelly at our anniversary dinner? Why no? The older woman put a hand on my shoulder. "You need to ask him that, Emily. Only him." Before I could answer, before I could even stand, a new voice spoke from behind us, calm, steady, and chilling. "I can answer that." I turned, and there she was. A woman in a dark green dress. Mid-30s. Pretty. Sharp eyes. A confident posture. She stepped forward, heels clicking on the tile. David's stretcher froze mid-movement when he saw her. He whispered one stunned word. "Madison." The woman smiled, a slow, dangerous smile. "That's right," she said. "Tell your wife who your real first choice was." The restaurant went silent. My heart dropped. My hands went numb. David's eyes filled with panic. And just like that, the truth I thought I was ready for was only just beginning to appear. The room froze the moment Madison stepped forward. Her dark green dress shimmered under the restaurant lights, and she walked with a confidence that made everyone else feel small. She wasn't nervous. She wasn't scared. She wasn't confused. She was prepared. Like she had been waiting for this moment. David's eyes widened in pure panic. He tried to sit up on the stretcher, but the paramedics pushed him gently back down. "Don't move, sir." But David wasn't listening. His breath came in sharp, broken gasps as Madison reached our table. My table. My life. My marriage. Everything I thought was real stood in danger. Madison stopped beside me. She didn't even blink. Her voice, when she spoke, was smooth and calm. "Emily," she said. "You don't know me, but your husband does." David tried to speak. "Please, Madison, don't." She tilted her head slightly, almost curious. "Why? You weren't so quiet 5 years ago." Whispers spread around the restaurant like wildfire. People leaned in. The waiters froze. The older woman, the boy's mother, tightened her grip on her son. I felt like the floor vanished beneath me. Madison looked at me, and the softness in her eyes wasn't kindness. It was pity. "Emily," she said, "you've been living with a fantasy. Let me tell you the truth." I opened my mouth to say no, to stop her. But the truth was already spilling. "I was his first choice," she said quietly. "Not you." My stomach nodded. I tasted metal and salt. And I felt myself detach, like I was watching from outside my body. Madison stepped closer to David. "You promised me a life," she said. "You begged me not to leave. You chased me across states. You cried on my porch. That's enough." David shouted from the stretcher, but his voice cracked like glass. Madison didn't flinch. "You told me Emily was just a rebound," she continued. "A way to make me jealous." People gasped. Someone whispered, "Oh my God." I felt heat burning under my skin. My heart pounded so hard the room pulsed with it. Madison turned back to me. "He married you because he couldn't have me," she said softly. "He proposed to you 2 weeks after I blocked his number. You were the second option. The backup. The one he settled for." The words cut so deep I couldn't breathe. David groaned from the stretcher. "Emily, please, no, listen." Madison laughed lightly. "Oh, he'll talk now," she said. "He'll talk because I'm finally here." The older woman, the boy's mother, stepped forward carefully. Her voice was steady. "My son doesn't need this cruelty," she said. "Stop." But Madison only shrugged. "I didn't come for your son," she said. "I came for him." She pointed at David. "I came to watch the king choke on his own lies." David reached a shaking hand toward me. "Emily, I love you. I swear." Madison scoffed. "Love," she repeated. "Then why did he come to me last year? Why was he begging me to meet? Why did he tell me he regretted marrying you?" My breath caught in my throat. "Last year? When he said he was away for work. When he said the hotel Wi-Fi was bad. When he said he needed space." The puzzle pieces slammed together. The room spun. I stood so fast my chair fell over. "Stop," I whispered, but my voice shook. "Please stop." Madison didn't soften. She wasn't done. She pulled something from her purse, a small velvet box, and placed it in my hand. My fingers trembled as I opened it. Inside was a ring. A woman's engagement ring. Not mine. Madison's voice was ice. "He bought this for me the same month he proposed to you." "Your ring?" "It was the cheaper one." My knees buckled. The boy's mother gasped softly. People covered their mouths. Someone whispered, "This is too much." David tried desperately to sit up. "Emily, no, listen to me. Madison is twisting, she's..." But Madison cut him off sharply. "Tell her the truth, David. Tell her why you chose Emily." David's voice cracked. "I was broken. I was lonely. I thought she would fill the space." The words hung in the air like a knife. He didn't even finish the sentence. The space. The gap. The wound. I wasn't a choice. I was a bandage. A replacement. My hands shook so hard the ring box slipped and fell to the floor with a soft thud. David saw my face, and his own face broke. Completely. "Emily," he whispered. "Emily, please don't leave me." Madison stepped back with satisfaction in her eyes. She had gotten what she came for. The older woman, The boy's mother looked at me with sympathy, her son's hand in hers. "This isn't your fault," she said quietly. "Some people break everyone they touch." Her words made me feel something different. Not pain, not fear. Strength. A quiet fire rising inside me. I stood tall. My tears dried warm on my cheeks. My voice returned, steady and sharp. "David," I said, "I know the truth now." He flinched. "I wasn't your first choice," I said, "but I'll be your last." He blinked in confusion. "Emily." I stepped closer. Close enough for him to see the steel in my eyes. "You're going to recover," I said. "You're going to sit up. You're going to walk out of this restaurant alive." And then, I leaned in. "You will watch me walk away from you forever." His mouth opened in shock. "No, Emily, no." But I wasn't finished. "And when I'm done," I said, "everyone will know exactly what kind of man you are." Madison's eyebrows rose, impressed. The older woman nodded slightly. The restaurant went silent. David reached for me, but the paramedics pushed him back down. His voice cracked. "Emily, don't do this." I stepped away from him. Calm. Steady. Clear. "You didn't choose me," I said quietly. "But today, I choose myself." And I walked out of the restaurant. Head high. Heart hurting but unbroken. Ready to start a new chapter that didn't include a man who used people like spare options. Behind me, I heard David shouting my name. I heard Madison laugh softly. I heard the older woman whisper to her son, "Come on, sweetheart. Let's go home." But I didn't turn back. Not once. Outside, under the cool night air, I took a deep breath. It felt like the first real breath I'd taken in 5 years. And that was my revenge. Not anger. Not destruction. Not screaming. But leaving him with the truth. And walking away from a man who never deserved my love.